Hi everyone, we had some internet issues this morning, so here's the sermon from the services, and it's based on a reading from Judges. So when I was in college, I took one of those Introduction to Literature classes, and I had a huge Norton Anthology of English Literature book. You know, the kind that weighed like at least 5 pounds. Anybody remember those? Well, first we read through the poetry of the 1700s, the great age of enlightenment, where order and science and logic were so very revered. And then we got to the Romantic era of the 1800s, when poets were reclaiming those things which the Enlightenment had downplayed. Things like emotions and nature and that which is beyond the ordinary, the sublime. In fact, my favorite poem for many years was by William Wordsworth. I'm sure a lot of y'all know that one. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. He goes on to describe how later, when this scene flashes through his mind, his heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. What I think the Romantic poets had correct in their resistance to the Enlightenment era was this: that while logic and thinking are very, very important, they must be balanced with emotions and feeling. A good life is one where the two are in harmony, and we can make decisions using both these functions, both thinking and feeling. We don't leave one behind for the other. But many of us do just that, right? Some of us lead with our gut, with our feelings, and that's the sole way that we make decisions. Some of us are very, very logical, and we must have at least 3 lists of all the pros and cons before we make any decision. You know where you are on that spectrum. All of us are different. And all through the Old Testament, there's examples of people divided between thinking and feeling as well. We have the passionate prophets, who operate almost solely out of a direct experience of feeling the divine, and who sometimes end up in the bellies of whales. We have the logical rabbis and priests who know the ins and outs of Torah law down to the letter, but who sometimes forget to feel compassion. So this unbalanced way of being in the world, it's not exactly anything new, right? But today we get an example of someone that balances both thinking and feeling. Her name is Deborah, and she's ruled from her mind and from her heart. In today's world, as we are faced with so many decisions, it could be fruitful for us to at least have her as an icon to hold on to. Politics aside, she was one of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's role models, so she at least deserves a little of our attention. But before we dig into who Deborah was, first let's really quickly figure out where we are on the Israelites' timeline. They have escaped from Egypt, and Moses has died, and they have settled in the Promised Land, and we're in a 300-year span before the great kings of David and Solomon, where Israel's just this loose collective of tribes, and they're governed by warrior judges. So today we meet Israel's 3rd judge, Deborah. Now, she is the only female judge mentioned in the Old Testament. And along with Eli and Samuel, 2 pretty big guys you've probably heard of, she's one of the only judges who is also a prophet. So she's kind of a big deal. And our story begins with the Israelites having been oppressed for the last 20 years by an army that had 900 chariots of iron. Now this is the early Iron Age. Israel had no iron chariots, so this is kind of like the other army having a whole bunch of tanks. And the people bring their complaints to Deborah, pleading to her and to God for help. Now, Deborah is a logical judge, and she knows that a bunch of ragtag fighters going up against a well-armed army is probably a pretty bad idea. So in one hand, she holds the image of the iron chariots and the fierce army. But remember, Deborah is not only a wise and sensible judge, she's also a prophet. So she listens to the voice of God, and in the other hand, she holds her experience of knowing the divine, of feeling what it's like to commune with God. And then as she weighs those 2 things out, as both judge and prophet, she does this as she sits under this big palm tree to make her decisions. This is a place where she can lean back and have the tree's sturdiness against her back, where she can see the broad picture of her people laid out in front of her, and she can think through what they really need as a people. And also where she can feel the wind in her face and the earth underneath her, and she can really understand the experience of God moving through her. And it's from that place, thinking logically and feeling God, that she makes her decisions. And in the end, under the command of General Barak, and through the actions of another woman, Jael, and through the 10,000 warriors that the Israelites have, they defeat the Canaanites. All because their leader has such a balanced vision and perspective. And the end of the story says, and there was peace in the land for 40 years. Doesn't that sound lovely? Because today we face many decisions. We face lots of decisions as a country. How we're going to be together. We face decisions as a church, how we're going to move forward into the next year. And I know we all are facing so many decisions in our own personal lives. And sometimes it can just feel like too much. If you're a logical thinker, maybe nothing seems logical right now. And if you're someone who decides from their emotions, well, everything may feel overwhelming right now. That can be a hard way to function in the world. But the church does have something to say to this. Our stories give us strength and show us examples of people like Deborah. Staying close to God and following her lead, we can reason through the ethical lessons we have learned in our lives. And we also can remember to hold on to how important it is to sit under a palm tree and listen for the voice of God. And know that no matter what our decision is, God is there with us as we face the 900 chariots of iron. Bishop Stephen Charleston agrees when he says, "Sit back and look to the vision within, the unexplored rooms of your heart, the open ground of your creativity, the hidden dimensions of your faith." When we do this, when we rely both on our minds and our hearts, and we connect to God as we do, then our decisions will become wise and clear ones. And then maybe our hearts really will with pleasure fill, and we'll be able to dance with the daffodils. Amen.